What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and today it is another mock draft. And I usually do 2 rounds, but I really got into it, and I'm like, you know what? I think I need a third round for context because I think there's going to be a lot of fan bases that are going to be upset with me. So it's going to be 3 rounds today instead of the usual 2, using the most up-to-date rosters for here week 13. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. But let's get right to it. Please don't be mad at me. And we'll get started here, of course, 8 by 8 on these picks. And I played around with a couple of possibilities for a couple of different teams. I think you can see there in the middle. But let's start at the top. Young, Anderson, and Stroud. I think that's pretty much what we're seeing locked in the top 3 picks. And with the Bears picking number 2, they're not going to take a quarterback, obviously. I do have Detroit taking Stroud. I think that is a situation where Lions fans, I don't think I'm going to get much pushback, because it's not Will Levis. I mean, you are picking third. If you got Stroud or Bryce Young there, I feel like you have to take him because it seems like, Jared Goff is going to be one of those guys that's going to be just good enough to keep you out of range of getting a top quarterback. So you want to use this amazing moment where the Rams just collapsed. And if you got the chance to swing at it, I would swing at it here. You got Jalen Carter going number 4 to Seattle. Miles Murphy going to Carolina. I could see Carolina maybe trying to trade up with Chicago. I think Chicago is going to be a prime trade-up spot, especially in this scenario where teams might be trying to get ahead of Detroit, like a Carolina would be, or like a massive monster trade-up, depending on how close the Colts can get. But in this scenario, they get Miles Murphy. Brian Breezy going to the Eagles. I think that this is something where they're like, who can we pair up with Jordan Davis? Continue to add to that defensive line. And, sort of allow themselves to... They've tried to throw a lot of different pieces there, like Milton Williams, for example. Fletcher Cox is obviously there. Javon Hargrave is there, but they cut Cox, brought him back. So I think that this is a good scenario for them to just sort of, maybe cut bait on some of those older veteran deals. Then I got Tyree Wilson going number 7 to the Cardinals. I think on a traits and body type alone, this is going to be something that I think Arizona will really want to sink their teeth into and grab him. They got the Packers taking Skoronski. They are not going to be able to get out of their Rodgers contract. There's got to be a huge buyout where they're not going to eat any cap room, but they will in, I think, any scenario. Or they're just going to trade Rodgers and get no value back for him. So I think it's kind of a moot point. So I would get something just to keep him protected. Because one of the issues that they had this year is that Rodgers, because his receivers had inexperience, they weren't necessarily breaking open the way that they were supposed to, or the way that the playbook and the play designs were sort of anticipating, and maybe what that line was used to. And it really hurt them, and I think it exposed a lot of the weaknesses on this line. Elton Jenkins is coming up. I would expect him to be franchise tagged. It's going to be interesting to see how he gets franchise tagged as a tackle or as a guard. That will make a huge difference in their ability to spend money in the offseason. But I still think regardless of that, Skoronski has to be the pick. You don't know what's going to happen with Bakhtiari in the future. There's just a lot of question marks out there for Green Bay in general. And here we got the first corner off the board, Keely Ringo going to the Raiders. I would say it's the best corner on the board if you got the top 2 interior defensive linemen off the board. Outside shot, this could be Paris Johnson. I just think that investing in that defense and at the corner position is going to be a priority for the Raiders. I mean, do they really even have a number 1 corner on that team that they can count on long term? I don't really see that. Nate Hobbs, but he's more like a slot guy. They got the Texans. I got them grabbing a number 1 receiver. They are going to lose Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks won't be there next year. So you need someone to come in, pair up with Nico Collins, and hopefully a healthy John Mechie. Jags sort of the same idea as the Raiders. Those 2 interior defensive linemen are gone. So they grabbed Jordan Addison, put him out there with Kirk and hopefully Calvin Ridley. And you got a nice group of receivers there for Trevor Lawrence moving forward. Paris Johnson to the Steelers. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. As is Joey Porter to the Lions. Aruarie is going to be a free agent coming up. He's not really performing all that great, so this is a good opportunity for them to get somebody opposite Jeff Okudah, who's finally having his breakout season. Will Levis to the Colts, I think it's pretty self-explanatory as well. This is about the range I would expect him to go in, especially if they don't figure out a way to get into the Stroud and Bryce Young sweepstakes. I think they're if there's a veteran that comes available, I could see the Colts being willing to maybe move this pick in order to get one. I'll say that, but I don't know. I don't foresee a veteran that would be high level enough for them to just not want to be like, let's just get a quarterback that we can develop and build for the future and maybe ride Matt Ryan for one more season. Speaking of Matt Ryan, Christian Gonzalez going to the Falcons. That's your other corner opposite A.J. Terrell now. Trenton Simpson, linebacker to Seattle. They like their linebackers. Jordan Brooks' contract's going to be coming up soon, I think. If they can't get an extension done, they get a smooth transition. Even if they can, they usually like running two linebackers, and Trenton Simpson is much better than what they have opposite of Jordan Brooks anyway. Chargers get Broderick Jones, getting a tackle opposite of Rashawn Slater, no matter what side they end up playing on. You got to keep Justin Herbert upright, man. Complete that offensive line. You'll have one of the better offensive lines in the league completing it this way. They got Cam Smith going to the Patriots. Isaiah Foskey going to the Bucks. They haven't really gotten much. Their defense just isn't the same. Their offense really isn't the same either, but I think that's one of the things you take the best player available at the most upside. And I think that Foskey, based upon their team needs as well, is really the best upside guy they could find. And then I threw Michael Mayer to Washington, which the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I actually really like that. I really like that idea for Washington. Logan Thomas is getting a little older. He's had some injuries. And you would get Mayer, who's also a great blocker. So he's not somebody you have to worry about taking off the field or anything. He's a complete, full toolbox for a tight end. George Kittle type tight end. So you got this could be a real weapon for this team to go with Dotson and McLaurin and Brian Robinson. Baltimore, Jackson Smith and Jigba. They're a tough team to pick for, man. Because you just don't know what their team's going to look like. So they're what's going to be their major needs come draft day? It's going to be really difficult to really figure out. Kind of have an idea about it. And JSN's a good blocker. So that's why I threw this one in there. But I mean, you never know with Baltimore, man. Baltimore is they're really hard to predict what exactly they're going to do with their picks. I think the closest thing to a predictable pick they made, I think, was Tyler Linderbaum last year. But other than that, they're really hard to nail down, especially because they clearly start to draft based upon their offensive strategy, which is why they drafted some tight ends and some linemen. But I do think getting a receiver that is willing to block, like JSN, is would be a pretty smart move to pair up with Rashad Bateman. Jets, Brian Branch, safety. Easy peasy, right? It's the biggest need on their defense. Their defense is amazing. Quarterback's not really an option here. I'm pegging them for the Jimmy Garoppolo sweepstakes come the offseason. I could see them moving Zach Wilson for a 4th-round pick and then bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo, perhaps. I think that would be I think the move to make. And then worry about getting a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback to develop for the long term down the line. Maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. There's some good quarterbacks in this draft. So you might be able to sneak one in there. Bengals take the best offensive lineman left on the board, Osiris Torrance. Not a lot of draft capital put in Cordell Volson. They seem to be done with Jackson Carman. So there's no harm in continuing to add to an offensive line that you just really need to get that thing right. And the Giants take Eli Ricks, cornerback, Alabama. Uh, they're bad at the cornerback position right now. Nick McLeod is a starting corner. Their lack of depth is being greatly exposed at that position right now. And I think that Ricks coming in to pair with a healthy Adoree Jackson will really, really solidify this team on the back end with a healthy McKinney coming back, Julian Love, looking like he's going to return as well. And then they got Aaron Robinson's still there. They got Flott, who they drafted last year. So they still got some depth guys. They just need a really solid outside corner that can pick up some of the slack that Adoree Jackson's been carrying this whole season. Jalen Duncan to the Broncos, Kayshon Boutte to the Titans. I kind of was flipping back and forth with these guys, but as it stands, you don't know if Broncos are going to trade like Jerry Jeudy or somebody like that. So I'm assuming they're keeping them all, and they're bringing in Jalen Duncan to help solidify the offensive line. Kayshon Boutte goes to the Titans to help improve that receiver room. Bijan Robinson goes to Dallas. Was looking for a spot to put him, and this was really the only one that came up. And based upon what they're potentially going to be doing in the offseason at the running back position, I could see this being a nice, smooth transition Jerry Jones would really like. Perhaps pairing Robinson up with Pollard if he can figure out a way to get out of Zeke's contract. Then we got Antonio Johnson going to Buffalo. Jordan Poyer's a free agent. You can now pretty much let him walk with some of the emerging guys you have depth-wise there. But then you get Antonio Johnson, who's more of a permanent mainstay for that position. And he can play really anywhere across that secondary. So he's going to be a great utility player in some sub packages. You can move him around and give some quarterbacks some fits. Jared Verse to the Vikings. They got a good little pass rush there. Smith and Hunter. But they're both older. So you want to kind of get out ahead of their sure regression that should be coming down the line any time now. And a nice smooth transition for the pass rush, I think, is really important. That and the offensive line, those are really important positions to have smooth transitions away from some of your older veteran players and bigger contracts. Siaki Ika to Kansas City. Sort of the same idea. Get a big space eater. Eat some double teams there as a one technique. Open up for Chris Jones and your edge rushers on the outside. Hopefully get them one-on-one with some guys. And then the Eagles, Nolan Smith. I know he's hurt, but you're taking him for the upside, right? You draft this guy for the upside. Sort of like the same idea with Brian Breezy. So you're just slowly working out some of the older players like a Brandon Graham and a Fletcher Cox. And then putting in these younger guys, but not having to throw them into the fire right away. Letting them sort of ease into it. Get a good rotation going, and then eventually be able to move on and make them the permanent guys. Going to try and fly through the second and third round. Thanks for sticking around for all this. Gervin Dexter to the Texans. BJ Ojolari to the Steelers. Get somebody there opposite TJ Watt. Andre Carter, edge to the Rams. They need to get value picks here, and they need to get guys who are going to help them out either on the offensive side of the ball or help out Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball. And Andre Carter kind of falling here a bit. He's somebody who could sneak into the first round. I think the Rams go up, grab him, and then maybe worry about figuring out some of the offensive stuff a little bit later and maybe in free agency a bit because, the cap isn't real. Speaking of the cap not being real, Saints take Tanner McKee, the quarterback, the most NFL ready left on the board. Jalen Hyatt to the Seahawks. I really like this pick. Seattle's going to be so good. I know it's not the biggest need in the world, Seattle fans, but DK, Lockett, and Hyatt. Oof, what a group. And Kenneth Walker in the oof. No offense. Oof. Oh, it's going to be a great offense. Even better than what you got producing right now, hopefully. Anthony Richardson to Carolina. Going for the upside. Going for the future here. You guys aren't winning anything anytime soon. Take a great pass rusher. Take your quarterback in the future. Have a veteran sort of ready there on deck to play for a year. And let Richardson sit because he's probably going to need to sit for the year anyway. Emmanuel Forbes to the Cardinals. He's another guy that's getting some first round buzz going around now. And another pick that I just love, just like the Jalen Hyatt pick there, I love Darnell Washington to Green Bay. Makes all the sense in the world to me. They can let Tunyon go. Darnell Washington comes in. He's a giant. And somebody nice and safe for Rodgers to have the perfect safety blanket tight end for Aaron Rodgers to have. Moving on here, we got Anton Harrison going to the Raiders. This is who you hoped Alex Leatherwood would be. Josh Downs to the Browns. That rhymed by accident. Donovan Peoples-Jones has started to have a really good year. He had some good games at least. And then Amari Cooper's there. You know what you got in him. Get Deshaun Watson, another guy, another sure thing there. You know, Schwartz is looking like he's just more of a utility player than anything else. You might want to get somebody who might be a real receiver to play that inside slot role. Got Clark Phillips III going to the Jaguars. Looks like he's going to be just a slot guy, which is why I'm sort of dropping him down the board a bit. I feel like his length teams will eventually, they'll drop him down boards because of that. Mozzie Smith going to the Steelers. Keep replenishing that front four. Felix Anudike-Uzomah going to Detroit. He'll play opposite Aiden Hutchinson. This is a fun little draft, I think, for the Lions. What do you guys think? Lions fans hate this channel, so what do you guys think? Leave in the comment section. Darnell Wright, Colts. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. Jahmyr Gibbs, running back, going to the Falcons. Just get a weapon out on the field. They've sort of moved away from Cordell Patterson, so I think Gibbs and Algier as a 1-2 punch could be quite the effective one moving forward for them. And I got Zach Harrison going to the Seahawks to play opposite Boya Mafe and worked in there with Uchenna Nwosu. It's gonna be a nice little defense there. I've really hooked up Seattle, man. Really hooking you guys up, and there's still more to come. Noah Sewell to the Chargers. DeJuan Jones, they're losing a lot of tackles in New England, it seems. So DeJuan Jones coming in is going to be, I think, quite the need for them. Jalen Jones, corner to the Bucks. This is your either Murphy Bunting or Jamel Dean replacement. Devin Witherspoon going to Washington. You guys need corners out there. You missed out on the ones in the first round. Now you get the second wave of corners here in the second. John Michael Schmitz, center of Minnesota, to Chicago. I think that it's a pretty important position to figure out. And to get somebody in there, young, let him grow with Justin Fields. Henry To'oTo'o, linebacker, Alabama to the Jets. They don't really have linebackers. They need like one safety and they need a new linebacker in the Jets. And then they'll have the greatest defense in the NFL. DJ Turner to the Bengals. Get rid of Eli Apple, you poor souls. And then my Giants take Rashee Rice, wide receiver out of SMU. This is your outside receiver. And Jesus Christ, figure it out, Kenny Golladay. Can you please figure it out? But they need to address corner and receiver, and that's what I did. Closing out the second round here, Parker Washington, wide receiver, Penn State, going to Carolina. Derek Hall, edge rusher, to the Titans. I got Cooper Beebe, guard, going to Dallas. So now when you get rid of Tyron Smith, Tyler Smith permanently goes to left tackle, and then Beebe fills in at that left guard position. And that left side of your offensive line has got some, looking like it's going to be some studly offensive line play. Then we got Andrew Voorhees, guard, going to Buffalo, figuring out that interior offensive line problem. Bit of a run here on offensive linemen. Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse going to Miami. So you're hoping your right tackle moving forward. Solidify that tackle spot. Jack Campbell, linebacker, to the Lions. This is pairing him up with Malcolm Rodriguez. Anzalone, has he played himself into getting a bigger contract? Do you want to pay him? I think that this opens it up so that maybe, You can have a nice, maybe a 3 linebacker rotation if you bring Anzalone back on a 1-year deal, and then eventually you funnel him out and you got 2 pretty good guys there. Cody Mock, North Dakota State tackle to the Chiefs. They're losing Orlando Brown, it looks like. And even if they don't, they still need another tackle because they got Andrew Wiley there playing right tackle. It's just not a great time. And then the Eagles take Blake Corum, the running back out of Michigan. Him and Kenneth Gainwell will probably be the 1-2 punch going forward there with Jalen Hurts, who's going to be needing a contract extension. So they can't pay Miles Sanders, that's for sure. Got to get rid of him at least. And also, they can get rid of some of those bigger defensive contracts, which is why I took those players for them at the very beginning. Going in the 3rd round, Chris Smith to the Texans, just pair him up with Jalen Pitre there in the back. Drew Sanders, linebacker to Chicago. Who plays linebacker for Chicago? I don't know. The Rams take Cedric Tillman, wide receiver, Tennessee. He's a bigger wide receiver. You hope can complement Cooper Kupp the way that Allen Robinson was supposed to. Denver takes Brandon Joseph, safety out of Notre Dame. This is your Kareem Jackson replacement long term. Jacqueline Roy, defensive tackle, LSU to the Saints. Will McDonald, edge rusher, Iowa State to the Patriots. Then we got Sean Tucker, running back, Syracuse, going to the Cardinals. Looking to work in a true running back there for them. Connor slowed down after that amazing year last year where he was just scoring touchdowns like crazy. You traded Chase Edmonds away. You were getting some okay play out of guys like Eno Benjamin and I think it was Kennedy Brooks. But hey, maybe you can get out of Connor's contract and replenish that room with some younger, cheaper options. Especially when you're an air raid offense, like what are you paying running backs for? Green Bay, Jordan Battle. This is your Adrian Amos replacement. Also somebody that can come down. You're probably going to keep Rudy Ford at this point. But when you have Darnell Savage moving down to play in the slot also, this allows you to have Jordan Battle and maybe Rudy Ford back there while you clear up cap space by getting rid of Adrian Amos. Raiders take Tuli Tuipulotu, defensive tackle, USC, filling in that interior defensive line spot. They don't really have any. Got Jarrett Patterson, center at Notre Dame. Just continue to add to that offense there. Luke Musgrave, tight end, Jacksonville, another guy that put out there for Trevor Lawrence. Garrett Williams took a bit of a tumble for me. Got him going here to Pittsburgh. You can play a little bit of safety too if you need him to. Speaking of safeties, J.L. Skinner, Boise State to the Lions. They got Caillou Blue Kelly going to the Colts. Zay Flowers coming in as another weapon for the Falcons. This is a good compliment to Drake London. And the second I turned to this page, if you moved your eyes down, you saw it. And it's Hendon Hooker, quarterback, Tennessee. Yes, he's gonna take a tumble. His age and now this ACL injury is really going to hurt him. However, I am seeing a team like Seattle here in this position in the 3rd round going, why not take a flyer on him? Because you can assume, sure, that Geno Smith is all of a sudden a world beater. Or you can play it a little safer, have a young-ish player on deck, just in case this is just a 1-year thing out of Geno Smith and that now a year of tape is going to slow him down. Just saying, just throwing it out there. I don't think that just because Geno Smith is playing well, that means Seattle is void of needing to have a long-term answer at quarterback outside of Geno Smith, and I think that this might fall into their laps and potentially work out for them. And if it doesn't, it's really just a 3rd-round pick where this is a perfect opportunity for a team like this to take a chance like that. The draft capital is not that high where they'll look back and they'll be like, oh, we really, really regret this. We really wasted this pick. This is not one of those things. It's not a 1st-round pick. It's not one of their 1st-round picks. It's not even an early 2nd-round pick for them. This is 3rd round, 80 80 picks already gone in the draft. Perfect opportunity for them to take this chance. Got the Chargers taking T'Vondre Sweat, defensive tackle, Texas. Help out that mushy run defense. Tre'Vius Hodges-Tomlinson, corner out of TCU, going to the Dolphins. They sneakily need some corner help along with the offensive line, so I want to grab one of each for them. Devin Achane, running back, Texas A&M, going to the Bucks. I think this would be a good pair up with Rachaad White moving forward. Dalton Kincaid, tight end, Utah, going to Denver. I was just throwing looking at would be a fun offensive player for them on the board. And this is what I saw. I was like, okay, good one with Greg Dulcich. I don't know what's going on with Albert O. I don't anticipate he'll be somebody that they will be too keen on having to pay to keep moving forward. I think his contract's coming up, if not this year, the year after. Then you got Chris Abrams-Drain going to Baltimore. They might lose Marcus Peters, but even then, depth at that cornerback position is essential for this defense. And then we got Blake Freeland going to the Jets as you're prepared to lose someone like Mekhi Becton, probably George Fant as well, even though he hasn't performed the way he did last year. So you want to keep moving guys around and get these guys in position. And a Blake Freeland, Max Mitchell tackle tandem could end up being sneaky good for them next year. Tucker Kraft, tight end, South Dakota State, going to the Bengals. And then I got Deion Henley, linebacker, Washington State, going to the Giants. That Micah McFadden was drafted, and he's been okay. Darian Beavers was looking good in preseason, had that injury, and it's hard to anticipate, and it's hard to count on every player coming back, from those types of lower body injuries. So you want to maybe grab somebody in the event that is the case. And linebacker is still a weak position for them anyway. I think even with a healthy Darian Beavers, unless he was going to light the world on fire. And closing this out, we got Zach Evans, running back, Ole Miss, going to the Carolina Panthers, pair him up with Chuba Hubbard. Steve Avila, interior offensive lineman, TCU, to the Titans. Got Malachi Moore, safety, going to Alabama. Tony Grimes, cornerback, North Carolina, going to Buffalo. Lucas Van Ness, defensive tackle, going to Iowa. He can play maybe a little 3-4 defensive end and stuff like that as well. Not quite Emmanuel Ogbah, but maybe, sort of. Then you got Marvin Mims, wide receiver, Oklahoma. Adam Thielen's getting a little older, man. Eventually he's going to fall off completely, and you're going to need new receivers in general, so might as well. KJ Henry, edge rusher, Clemson, going to Kansas City. And I got Rashad Torrance II, safety, going to Florida. They got to bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So pairing him up with Rashad Torrance, I think would be a pretty nice pairing for the Eagles moving forward. And they continue to add pieces onto that defense throughout this entire mock draft here to allow them to sort of get rid of maybe some bigger contracts along the way as well. And there you have it. Thanks for coming along on this journey with me. For 96 picks, I did my best to make everybody happy. I know I failed at doing that, but I want to hear it in the comment section below. But just please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel as well so I can do all the sports content. There's going to be more and more as the year goes on. Just a lot going on right now. So we're a little lower. But thanks for coming. And I'll see you next time. Bye.